Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily this Tuesday, November 18th. I'm Greg Bishop, editor at thecentersquare.com, Illinois, where you can get the latest headlines in your inbox simply by going to the website and clicking newsletter. You'll be able to fill in the information and wake up with headlines like Chicago Council Committee rejects mayor's proposed tax, or how about the story we talked about yesterday with 193 youth in care at the Department of Children and Family Services missing just in 2025, and you can read that story in more detail. But also, you can donate to the Center Square, nonprofit newswire service. Definitely your donations are going to go a long way. But wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily as we break things down for you. A lot going on today, and one thing that's going to be happening is we're going to get more certainty as to who is on the March primary ballot. You've got the March primary coming up for the November general election midterm. And the March primary, you're going to be able to choose Republican candidates that you want to nominate, or you can choose a Democrat candidate you want to nominate for a whole slew of offices. But you can't jump back and forth. When you go to the primary ballot in March, you have to essentially declare a party. Either you're going to be a Democrat and vote for, say, who's going to be the next Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate, or you're going to have to pull the Republican ticket and vote for the Republican U.S. Senate candidate nominee. But on the Republican ticket, you're going to get a whole list of things, including who do you want to be the governor candidate to challenge the Democrat that ultimately makes it out of the primary. You've got Attorney General and Secretary of State and so on. So you got the constitutional offices, but you've also got the local offices, the state house seats. Some Illinois Senate seats are up for election in November, and even some county issues as well. So it's important that you kind of get plugged in to know what's coming up in November, because between now and March, you're going to hear a lot of the party's internal debating. Republicans are going to be debating Republicans to get your vote. Democrats are going to be debating Democrats to get your vote. And then after the March primary, we've got our nominees go on to the November election for the midterm. So Congress as well going to be on the ballot. So a lot to take in today at the Illinois State Board of Elections. I'm anticipating it's going to be a long hearing, but they do have a hearing where they're going to go through some of the objections that were raised against nominating petitions that were filed by Democrats and Republicans. For instance, there's 22 candidates that filed to get either party's nomination for the U.S. Senate seat that Dick Durbin is vacating. You've also got some names that were tossed in for governor that have challenges against them, including a Democrat that filed to challenge Governor J.B. Pritzker in the March primary. So will we find out today that Pritzker is going to be unchallenged in the primary, or is he going to have a challenger like he did in 2022? If you recall, the governor did have a Democrat challenger in the primary back in 2022 when he was running for his second term, but now he's running for his third term. So the State Board of Elections, we're going to bring you, obviously, what happens out of that and all of this, as especially when you look at the governor's race. Governor J.B. Pritzker putting $20+ million into his campaign. I think that takes the total like $350 million since he got involved in electoral politics for himself back in 2018, 2019. So a lot's going to happen at the State Board of Elections today. We'll be watching that. Kicks off at 9 this morning. But you also have a Joint Committee on Administrative Rules hearing, and that's that bipartisan legislative body that meets once a month to go over administrative rulemaking. So when a law is passed, a state agency has a directive, but they have to set out rules to be able to do those things. And sometimes state agencies have emergency rules that they have to file, and the JCAR, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, is more of like an oversight, just to say, okay, you've got these rules in place, and all right, they're in place and good to go. But then you've got other times where they may object to rules and delay things. Pardon while I take a sip of coffee here. So you've got JCAR meeting today, a whole host of things they're going to tackle. But one thing we've been watching closely, and you can go to thecentersquare.com and search JCAR, and you'll be able to see, the previous months of what the focuses were. And they were looking at prison mail scanning. So just kind of a preview. That's what we're going to be tackling some tomorrow after JCAR meets today to get an update on the emergency rules that the Illinois Department of Corrections filed to have prison scan mail, so that inmates aren't going to be able to get that physical copy of mail in their hands and hold it and feel it and touch it and maybe smell it. But the concern has been, and you've got ongoing pressure from advocates for public safety saying that, listen, there are drugs getting into the prisons through the mail. Some people saying it's being laced in paper, and they're getting a letter from grandma, and they're rolling it up, and they're smoking it, and they're getting high from it. The smoke from that not only impacting them and possible overdoses and death, but also the staff. So the idea was they're going to try to consolidate things, get the prison mail scanned so that inmates have tablets to view that mail. So they've got those rules they're trying to put together. There's been some opposition and some interesting angles, so we'll be watching that today as well and bring you that. That's why it's important you go to thecentersquare.com and click on the Illinois page, get the newsletter, but you can wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Okay, what are we doing today? Well, yesterday there was a Chicago City Council meeting that was looking at some tax proposals from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and no stamp of approval. Johnson holding a news appearance to take questions, and he was peppered with all kinds of questions about tax increases in Chicago. Some interesting things said there, so we'll review some of that. But we also got to talk about hemp and the government reopening. Also included the federal government. They passed the bill that would reopen the federal government after 40-plus days of it being closed. And part of that legislation included regulation on hemp products, in particular intoxicating hemp products. Governor J.B. Pritzker sounded off on that late last week, so we'll hear some of that. And also check out some of the comments that were made by the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, which advocates for hemp and the hemp industry. And they're saying that they do want some regulations, so they're going to see how they can work with the governor and the legislature to get that done. All right, so a lot of preview here. Again, get to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter, check out some of the latest headlines, including what we're going to talk about next, and that's Chicago Council Committee rejects mayor's proposed tax hikes. So pull that up and let's get ready. It is Illinois in Focus Daily with you each and every weekday morning. I'm Greg Bishop for the Center Square.
So if there are alders that want to put up on the board to raise the property taxes, and they're going to have to go out and find 26 votes to do that. And even if they find 26 votes, I'm vetoing it.
It's Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago talking about how he's going to veto any budget that the city council approves that includes property tax increases. This, as the mayor is looking to increase a whole host of taxes, including a head tax, which would possibly cost some businesses tens of thousands of dollars extra a year, if not more. So what's going to happen in the city of Chicago as they get closer to that end of year deadline to pass a budget with the prospects of $1 billion+ of debts that they're going to go into the next year with? Well, it could be more tax increases. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can go to thecentersquare.com. Check out the headline from the Center Square's Jim Talamonte. Chicago Council Committee rejects mayor's proposed tax hikes. And we'll go through this with you here. And of course, you can read it for yourself and get it in your inbox by going to thecentersquare.com and sign up for the newsletter. So the Chicago City Council Committee on Finance rejecting a package of higher taxes proposed by Mayor Brandon Johnson. After the committee voted 25-10 against Johnson's revenue package Monday afternoon, the mayor refused to back down from his proposed corporate head tax. And you can read some of the comments there. Mayor Johnson, he went in front of the press and talked about a whole host of things, and including asked questions by the press, and he apparently is dodging, at least according to one reporter's perspective here.
So just to be clear, you are not backing down on the head tax whatsoever. It's going to be in your budget.
I'm not backing down in protecting working people. Right, that's the
well,
part.
That's kind of dodging the question. If you
no, it's not.
Well, are you? Is the head tax going to stay in your budget?
I just said though, Greg. I just said that we're not. I'm going to veto a budget that increases property taxes, and I'm challenging those with the means, these large corporations, to pay their fair share in taxes. This community safety charge does just that.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
So again, you heard the mayor there taking a question from a reporter about whether or not he's going to continue to support the head tax. What does the head tax do? Well, the mayor's plan would impose a $21 per worker monthly tax on businesses with 100 employees or more, although there have been discussions about some workers being exempted. A business with exactly 100 employees would pay $2,100 a month, or $25,200 annually. So you can see how that would add up real quick for businesses in Chicago. Some have said, listen, something like that is going to cause businesses to flee the city of Chicago. And some pointing that businesses are already fleeing Chicago with a whole host of concerns, from high property taxes, high crime in some areas. Johnson being asked about what's driving businesses.
People aren't coming downtown. Property values go down. Doesn't that hurt homeowners in Englewood and in Austin even further, as the Pappas's report seemed to indicate?
Well, look, I try not to live in hypothetical. I'm a Bears fan, so I try to live in like real practical terms. Here's what I believe folks are missing who have that particular vantage point. The reason why, first of all, the vacancy exists is because obviously we're still recovering from the pandemic. There is no correlation between taxation and the success, if you will, of corporations.
And I just want to pause there for a moment. He says they're still recovering from the pandemic as to why the business hasn't bounced back as fast. And Illinois, for some reason, lags the rest of the country when it comes to rebounding from economic downturns. And we can go back to in the 2007-2008 housing crisis. It took Illinois more than a decade to bounce back. After COVID, we have gotten to the points pre-COVID, but again, it took Illinois longer to get to economic levels than the rest of the country after the pandemic and the government-imposed shutdowns and so on. So Johnson saying they're still recovering from the pandemic, that's why there's empty storefronts. Just, it's interesting to hear that perspective, especially now in 2025, the tail end, when the pandemic was, 2020, 2021 in Illinois. Governor Pritzker had executive orders and emergency declarations keeping the pandemic enforcement of, certain types of business restrictions for like 2.5 years. So after that, it was, everything's open, everything's ready to go. So here we are again, late 2025. Are we really still recovering from the pandemic? Again, back to the mayor.
We do know, though, is there is a correlation between safety and population and businesses. This is about ensuring that we do the work that strengthens our city as a much safer place to live and do business. Keep in mind, this community safety surcharge is going to go towards the area that everybody knows is the most important thing, which is to ensure that we're driving violence down on the city of Chicago. There's more evidence of community safety driving business and people out than any of the speculations that they're making.
So again, it seems to be just completely dismissing economists who point to, listen, if you've got high taxes in one area and low taxes in another area, the businesses are going to invest in the places where they've got lower taxes. And that's going to mean more jobs for that area. That's going to mean more tax revenue from those jobs for government services, as opposed to an area and a jurisdiction, even if it is a large hub like Chicago with higher taxes and a whole host of other issues, including funding governments that can't live within its means, like the city of Chicago, looking at $16.6 billion, I believe, in a budget for next year, and they're estimating a $1.5 billion deficit for that budget. So where's the cuts going to come from? And again, the mayor talking about a head tax, and here he is discussing the position that he has and the posture that he has versus others taking different positions about the head tax.
I want to make something again absolutely clear. This budget is meant and designed to protect the working people of this great city. And I will use every single tool available to me and stand by our power to ensure that working families no longer have to bear the burden of a budget being balanced off of their backs. Thank you.
Right,
so the mayor taking some questions and asked about the other taxes he has, right? The head tax, and he says that's to help take the burden off of working families. You've got a streaming services tax and a whole host of other things. More from the mayor's Q&A with members of the press yesterday.
The personal property lease tax / the cloud tax.
Yeah.
There are a lot of small business folks who say that's a tax on working people. That's going to sock working people. Small business owners leasing property, leasing cloud computing software. Would you consider amending that proposal?
I have not heard working people say that to me. Who are you talking to?
I've talked to a couple business owners and some aldermen that have called out that PPLT in the cloud tax.
I have not heard. First of all, it doesn't affect working people the way in which it's being described. We're talking about an industry that's making more money than they even imagine. So I would, if next time you talk to those auditors, tell them to text me and we can have a conversation about it.
The conversation, though, in the committee that rejected the mayor's tax proposals seemed to be, no, they don't support these ideas. And you've got more taxes being discussed and what they're going to possibly do in the city of Chicago if they don't get these tax increases.
Here's what I do know. It's property taxes, garbage fees, grocery taxes, or layoffs. Or we can actually protect working people. That's what this budget does.
You said you'd veto any proposal that has a property tax increase. Will you veto any proposal that doesn't have a corporate head tax?
The question is really, can you pass a budget without requiring large corporations to pay their fair share in taxes? I mean, folks will attempt to. I don't know how you do that. In fact, look, just this past weekend, I was on the west side of Chicago where I live. I was at Aspire and Zoe Life Ministries. I'm talking about hundreds of people in line for food and toilet paper. For food and toilet paper. Now, these alders who represent communities like North Lawndale and Inglewood, who saw a 100%, almost 100%, 80% increase in their property taxes, and their families are in lines for food and toilet paper, and you're asking me, should I place a greater burden on them? If that's what the question is, I'm not going to do that. These large corporations have an opportunity to put more skin in the game. We cannot balance this budget off the backs of working and poor people.
So again, the question was, will you veto a budget that does not include the corporate head tax? He said he'd veto a budget that includes the property tax, but what about that corporate head tax? Again, corporate head tax that's possibly going to cost an employer with just 100 employees $25,200 per year. All right. So Johnson said Chicago's elevated numbers of downtown office vacancies, not the result of high taxes. But Reed Smith, a partner at David Dorner, said a head tax is not the way to bring people into Chicago. He told Jim Talamonte with the Center Square that he thinks it's going to keep people out of the city when we want to bring them back in and have people working here, coming downtown, visiting the downtown businesses. You don't want to give them a reason not to come to the office, and that's what the head tax would do. In addition to the corporate head tax, the mayor's $16.6 billion spending plan includes new taxes on social media, sports betting, and boat mooring. Dorner said the mayor's cloud tax or lease tax would affect the lease, rental, or use of computer software or cloud infrastructure. Interesting to note, apparently there's some downages on websites this morning that's caused by a service called Cloudflare. So just kind of interesting. We're talking about that as that's going on as well. But back to the story here. Dorner said increasing the tax to 15% would impact businesses and individuals who pay for software licenses. And he says, as you can imagine, businesses spend a lot on their budget and technology, including software services, that are going to subject that to higher tax. If passed by the city of Chicago, it's already 11%. It's not long ago, it was 9%. So the mayor asked about a whole host of other things and just continued back and forth. But really, when it comes down to it, they've got the clock ticking for them to get the budget proposal on the mayor's desk and approved before it starts January 1st. It's always fascinating. We'll be hearing a lot more about this with Chicago City Council meeting scheduled today, I believe, and the Center Square's Jim Talamonte is going to be on top of that. So go to thecentersquare.com. Get the latest headlines in your inbox, but you can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the latest with Illinois in Focus Daily. As part of the federal government reopening, legislation approved by the U.S. Congress and signed by President Donald Trump also puts some regulations on intoxicating hemp. What does that mean for Illinois' hemp industry? And efforts by Governor J.B. Pritzker to regulate intoxicating hemp substances. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the latest. Go to thecentersquare.com, where you can get headlines in your inbox, including today's topic of hemp. And it's the sister plant to marijuana, and it's something that's been an interesting conversation since a farm bill several years ago seemed to lift regulations on hemp production. But if you go to thecentersquare.com, you can see the headline, Hemp Industry Advocate Promises to Work with Pritzker and Lawmakers. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, an advocate for the Illinois hemp industry, they have different views on reform after Congress passed prohibitions on most hemp products. You can see, again, this story from Jim Talamonte with the Center Square, saying that legislation to end the partial shutdown last week included a provision to restrict hemp products containing THC. That's the psychoactive component in cannabis. So Governor J.B. Pritzker late last week asked about this, and he talked about how he's got to look more into what exactly is going on with the hemp industry, especially after Congress passed this bill. That has a year delay before it's implemented, so still some time here to figure out how Illinois can play into this with the hemp industry ongoing.
Well, as you know, what I wanted was for intoxicating hemp to be regulated the same way that cannabis is in the state, and I haven't looked at the details of the bill that was passed because it's not a complete ban. There's a regulation around it. Makes it harder for the worst parts of intoxicating hemp to be just sold to anybody. So we're going to have to look at how we might regulate it now that we see that the federal government is limiting it. But look, the goal here is to keep our children safe. That really is my number one goal about regulating intoxicating hemp. And when it's available everywhere and it's got names like Skittles with a Z on the end, and it looks the same as the Skittles, the candy, it's just not right. And I have been disappointed that the industry here has been unwilling to accept proper regulation. So now we'll end up at the table talking about how best to move forward.
But the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association says that, they do want some regulation, but they want it to not end the hemp industry. And if you go to the story, you'll see Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association Board President Craig Katz. He said that provisions approved by Congress would essentially kill the hemp industry by banning 95% of its products. He said that the new legislation basically includes any THC levels, whether it's THC 9, THC 8, THC 10, THCA, THCP, and groups them all together. It's virtually impossible to not have some trace amount of THC in your products, and that includes non-intoxicating THC products. Katz said some of the products are used to address medical issues, including veterans with PTSD, childhood epilepsy, and other conditions. You've got Smart Approaches to Marijuana, a national group, saying that the U.S. House vote, it closes the hemp loophole that was created by legislation several years ago. But again, Governor J.B. Pritzker says that he hopes to get together with the hemp industry in Illinois to find how Illinois can regulate the industry and what that kind of regulation would look like. And he's ready to get to the table to discuss this. Now, this was something that was obviously pretty heated last year. Whenever the legislature was in their spring session, a lot of closed-door debates in 2024, and even stories coming out of caucus meetings with governor officials that got pretty vocal, and a lot of opposition and a lot of debating and arguing, and they never had a bill ultimately get through both chambers of the legislature. And they tried bringing it back in that fall veto session. Then in the spring session this year, there was some discussion about it, but there was no movement, and there were questions about what kind of tax rates are we talking about? Should hemp, which is low levels THC, and there's a lot of hemp products that are being refined and being distilled to be more potent, and then they're sold in different packages, either sprayed on a flowery substance, or they're put into some kind of candy or some kind of drink, for instance. I've seen a proliferation of hemp drinks at even local bars. It's pretty fascinating. But you've got obviously the question of, well, hemp's not cannabis. It's the same plant, but it's not, the intoxicating marijuana that is legal for recreational use with very high taxes, up to 45%, depending on the potency. But also you've got medical cannabis, which doesn't have a tax if you've got a medical card in Illinois. But marijuana is still federally prohibited. Will the Trump administration move to reclassify marijuana to a different schedule of drug that doesn't have the level of federal regulation? Or what about the hemp plant? So still a lot of questions and happenings that are going to be heard in Illinois around this. And again, the governor saying that he's looking to get to the table to talk about this.
Yeah, well, again, I have to sort of sort through what the federal bill actually allows us to do, because supremacy clause, we've learned a lot about that in the last few months. But we want to make sure that whatever it is that's allowed in the state of Illinois, again, is just safe for children and obviously safe for anybody that uses it.
And again, Craig Katz with the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, he said that they're going to file legislation at the State House for the January 2026 legislative session. He said that they'd love to work with the governor and his office on formulating regulations that address the issues that he says he's concerned about. So a lot more to be said about this issue, especially now the federal government's made the move they made to not just open the federal government back up, but to regulate hemp. And it seems that there's going to be a runway to get to that point. So clearly, keep it with Illinois in Focus Daily, and we'll update you as this story progresses. Get to the website, thecentersquare.com, and register for the newsletter. It's free. You get headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning, and you can wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus. If you're not with us live for the live chat, which is always robust and a lot of interesting conversations had there, you can watch us on the replay. If you can't watch us, you can listen to us. Just search for Illinois in Focus on your podcast site. You'll be able to find it and subscribe there as well and get updates as they happen. With the Center Square. All right, right, that's all I got for you today. I think earlier I was going to run through kind of a live demonstration of the Illinois State Board of Elections website because they have a hearing this morning that's going to be a pretty lengthy one on their YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch that live. I know I'm going to be. But at the start of the show, the Illinois State Board of Elections website was down. Not sure if it was because of the Cloudflare situation or what, but just refreshed it and it's back up. So if you get a chance, go check this out. Some of the things here are going to change after today, after the hearing, as you got the next board meeting this morning. But you'll be able to go to like information for voters, for instance. Go to who is running for office. And then here, you click on search filing candidates. And then the election type, we're looking at the general primary on March 17th. You got 639 candidates that filed. And then go through there, and you can select the office type. U.S. Senator, statewide executive offices, representatives in Congress, state central committee. You can select the office, governor and lieutenant governor, who's running. So if you pull those up, you'll be able to see exactly who is on the ticket. So, for instance, governor and lieutenant governor, there's a bunch of candidates, and some are active, some have challenges, Democrats and Republicans. So definitely get out there and do some research, know who's running, and we'll talk a lot more about this tomorrow. All right. It is Illinois in Focus Daily with you each and every weekday morning. I'm Greg Bishop. Greatly appreciate you guys being here and joining the live chat. What else is going on today? Oh, yeah, the JCAR meeting. Touched on that briefly. Mailing prisoners' mail could be scanned. It is being scanned in some areas. Some success. But you've got the opponents of this saying that it's taking away a vital lifeline to those inmates who just need some tactile thing from their loved ones to feel. What's going to happen? Wake up with us tomorrow. We'll get to it. By the way, also, a lot of people still waiting on what's going on with the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in the case challenging Illinois' gun ban. Here's the docket. No update. Just that it was heard September 22nd. We're coming up on 2 months here. 2 months that they've had this in their hands. And the big question is, how much longer will gun owners in Illinois have to wait to find out whether or not their Second Amendment rights includes the ability to, own and possess a semi-automatic rifle like an AR-15. I'll be checking that regularly in the days ahead, seeing when that ruling comes out, because ultimately, as we've covered here with Illinois in Focus and the Center Square, this has been going on since January of 2023, and all of the up and down the court system of not just the state court, but the federal courts, and getting to some resolution here with this question. Now it's in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, awaiting a ruling on the merits after a district court found it unconstitutional. So we've got a ruling of it being unconstitutional. That was made last year about this time, wasn't it? I mean, let's go back to the docket here. I'm just going to... All right, when was this filed? Give me a moment here, because I am curious. Let's just check out the full docket. When was this actually filed? And here we go. So this was filed at the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. Holy cow, yeah. A year ago. They've had this for a year after Attorney General Kwame Raoul filed an appeal to the district court's ruling. So, again, I know a lot of you are waiting. What's going to happen with this case? We'll be trying to stay on top of it for you. Appreciate you guys reaching out also for tips. You can find my email at thecentersquare.com, and always appreciate getting some things that we can put our resources towards reporting. So go to thecentersquare.com and find all of that. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. A lot going on today. But wake up with us tomorrow for a review of what's going on in the land of Lincoln. It's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily and the Center Square.